The date is March 27th, 1980, and the Hunt brothers are watching their empire crumble in real time. Once among the richest men in America, now forced to declare bankruptcy because of one day that would forever be known as Silver Thursday. For years, they had dominated the silver market, controlling a staggering portion of the world's supply. Their names had become synonymous with power, influence, and financial genius. But on this day, that illusion shattered. Prices plunged, billions were wiped away, and the financial system teetered on the edge of collapse. This is the story of how two Texas oil tycoons set out to corner the silver market, amassed unimaginable wealth, and lost over $1 billion in a single day. This is the story of the Hunt brothers and Silver Thursday. Brothers weren't just any businessmen. They were heirs to one of the largest oil fortunes in American history. Their father, H.L. Hunt, was a legend in the oil industry, a self-made billionaire who built an empire through ruthless ambition and strategic investments. After H.L. Hunt's death in 1974, his sons, Nelson Bunker Hunt and William Herbert Hunt, inherited vast wealth. But they weren't content with just running an oil empire. They wanted more. They wanted to make history. The Hunt brothers believed that the US dollar was in decline. The country had abandoned the gold standard, inflation was soaring, and paper money was losing value. To protect their wealth, they turned to the one thing they believed would always hold value: silver. Their plan wasn't just about protecting their fortune, it was about expanding it. Silver, they believed, was the key to preserving and growing their wealth in an era of economic uncertainty. In the early 1970s, the Hunt brothers began buying silver. At first, their purchases were modest, but as inflation continued to rise, their strategy became aggressive. They believed silver was undervalued and that its price would skyrocket. But they didn't just want to invest in silver, they wanted to control it. By the late 1970s, the Hunt brothers had accumulated nearly 200 million ounces of silver. Their strategy was simple. The more silver they bought, the higher the price would climb. And for a while, it worked. Silver prices soared from $6 per ounce in 1978 to an all-time high of $50 per ounce in early 1980. The Hunt brothers had turned silver into a global frenzy. Investors flooded the market, fearing they'd miss out on the opportunity of a lifetime. They had even gone international. Through partnerships with Middle Eastern investors, they managed to extend their control over silver markets beyond U.S. borders, making their influence even more profound. Banks, traders, and entire economies were reacting to the Hunt's movements, and speculation in silver reached fever pitch.
I can feel it. Let's get in on it.
Hunt brothers were celebrating their growing fortune. Regulators and bankers were growing nervous. Their control over the silver market was unprecedented, and their influence threatened financial stability. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, and the Federal Reserve saw the writing on the wall. If silver prices continued their meteoric rise, it could lead to a financial disaster. The regulators stepped in, implementing new trading rules to curb excessive speculation. The most devastating blow came when the Federal Reserve and COMEX changed margin requirements for silver contracts. This meant that the Hunt brothers had to put up more cash to maintain their positions. They had borrowed heavily to finance their silver empire, and suddenly they were running out of money. Banks that had previously been willing to lend to the Hunts now began to pull back, seeing the risk in their over-leveraged position. Suddenly, their once limitless access to credit was tightening. The market, sensing the shift, became volatile. Traders who had followed the Hunts into silver began reconsidering their positions. With banks tightening the noose, the Hunt brothers found themselves in a precarious situation. They were no longer in control. The market was beginning to turn against them. March 27, 1980, Silver Thursday. It started with a slight dip in silver prices. Then, panic set in. As margin calls rolled in, investors rushed to sell. The price of silver, once at $50 an ounce, plummeted to below $11 an ounce in a matter of days. The Hunt brothers, who had been worth billions on paper, now faced massive losses. They had borrowed heavily to finance their silver purchases, using their holdings as collateral. But as the price collapsed, Their lenders demanded repayment. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, the Hunt brothers scrambled to raise money, but it was too late. The financial institutions they had borrowed from, including some of the most powerful banks in America, were now in crisis. The fear was that their collapse could trigger a broader market meltdown. By the end of the day, the financial world had changed. The Hunt brothers had gone from market conquerors to symbols of reckless speculation. When the dust settled, the Hunt brothers had lost over $1 billion. They were no longer billionaires, and their empire lay in ruins. To prevent a wider financial disaster, a bailout deal was orchestrated. A group of banks, under pressure from the Federal Reserve, agreed to restructure the Hunt's debts, but at a steep cost. The once mighty silver tycoons were forced to sell off assets, declare bankruptcy, and face years of legal battles. The U.S. government fined them for market manipulation, and their reputations were permanently damaged. Nelson Bunker Hunt, once one of the richest men in the world, declared bankruptcy in 1988. His brother, William Herbert Hunt, faced a similar fate. The financial world had moved on, but their story remained a cautionary tale. Hey, if you're enjoying the story so far and would like to support the channel, visit dudedivision.com and use code LOSTCHRONICLES for 15% off your first order. Now let's get back to the story. The Hunt brothers' attempt to corner the silver market remains one of the most infamous financial maneuvers in history. It exposed the dangers of market speculation, reshaped commodities regulations, and led to stricter rules to prevent future manipulation. Their downfall also served as a cautionary tale. Even the wealthiest and most powerful investors are not immune to hubris, greed, and the unforgiving nature of financial markets. Decades later, Silver Thursday remains a defining moment on Wall Street, a reminder of what happens when ambition meets unchecked speculation. And so, the Hunt brothers, once kings of silver, ended up as symbols of one of the greatest financial collapses of all time. In the world of high finance, fortunes can be made in an instant, but they can also disappear just as quickly. The Hunt brothers learned this lesson the hard way, and so, the question remains, was it greed, ambition, or simply bad timing? Or were they the victims of a financial system that was never meant to be controlled by outsiders? You decide. As always, trade wisely, my dudes. Well, that's the end of the story, but let us know in the comments what you think. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe for more wild stories.